So let's talk about how we can make a major hexachord scale starting on a note that's different from C. Right? So for this example, we're going to start writing a scale on the note A. Right? And we're first going to lay out all the letter names of the scale, and then we're going to look at the intervals between each of these notes to make sure that they conform to the pattern for the major hexachord scale. And if not, we'll be using accidentals to change the intervals so that they match. Remember that the major hexachord scale has one half step only, and it's between scale degree 3 and scale degree 4. Okay, so let's start by putting down the notes of the major hexachord scale starting on A and just the letter names. So we start with A, and then B, and then C, D, D, and then E, and then F. Right. So those are the 6 notes of the major hexachord scale starting with the note A. Now let's take a look at each of these notes, each pair of notes, to make sure that the intervals match the pattern for the major hexachord scale. Okay. So the first pair of notes, A to B, okay, that's a whole step. You can see that because there's 2 half steps between A and B. From A to A sharp is 1 half step, and from A sharp to B is 1 half step. So from A to B is a whole step. Okay, so that's good. That's a whole step. Next, we have the note B and the note C. Right. The 2 notes here are next to each other, as you can see, and they're actually a half step apart, from B to C as a half step. So we know that this doesn't match the pattern of intervals that's needed for the major hexachord scale. So what we're going to do is manipulate that second note of the pair, the C, to make a whole step. In order to do that, so we're sticking with the B, okay, and then instead of a C, we're going to use an accidental to raise the C up a half step to C sharp. So let me do that right now. Right, raise it to C sharp. Okay. So here you have B to C sharp. Okay, so that's a whole step. Now that works. Next, C sharp to D. Okay, that's a half step. Notice that the 2 notes are next to each other on the keyboard, and that matches the pattern for the major hexachord scale because remember from scale degree 3 to 4, it's a half step, so that works. Next, D to E. It's a whole step. Great. And then from E to F, as written, is a half step. Notice that these 2 notes are next to each other. So for the major hexachord scale, again, the scale degree 5 and 6 has to be a whole step and not a half step. So here again, we're going to manipulate that second note of the pair. Okay. Instead of an F, we're going to raise it a half step to F sharp. Okay. So here then you have E to F sharp, right? And that's a whole step. And just to remind myself, I'm going to write a slur between scale degrees 3 and 4, right? To remind myself that that's a half step in the scale. Okay? And that pattern of whole steps and half steps is the same for any major hexachord scale. Okay? So that's your major hexachord scale starting on A.